Hello and welcome to South Dakota Public Broadcasting's coverage of the 2019 inaugural ceremonies. We are coming to you live from the State Capitol building in Pierre. I'm Stephanie Rissler alongside Larry Rohr.
Thanks, Stephanie. A little earlier today, over in the House and Senate chambers, legislators were sworn in. It was over in the Senate. Justice Gilbertson swearing in the senators, some new faces and some old faces. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we're going to swear in the governor, lieutenant governor, and all the constitutional officers in the rotunda here at the Capitol. Kristi Noem will be sworn in as the 33rd governor of South Dakota, the first female governor. A little bio background: she grew up on a farm in rural Hamlin County. And with a tragedy in the family, she took over that family farm and ranch, began her political career in 2006. She's a wife, a mother, a farmer and rancher, and is here today along with her husband Brian and children Cassidy, Kennedy, and Booker.
Starting that political career right here in the State Capitol building, where she was a state lawmaker beginning in 2006, representing District 6. Her constituents sent her back for a second term. She became the Assistant Majority Leader and, of course, served in the United States House of Representatives for 8 years. And in just a few moments, we will see her be sworn in as the next South Dakota governor. Hello and welcome to Election 2018. Today we focus on the candidates running for the office of South Dakota Governor. This broadcast is not a debate, it is a forum so that we can provide a conversation on the issues. Each candidate will have the opportunity to address all of the issues brought up tonight. There is a 1-minute opening and closing statement. Now let's meet our guests. Libertarian candidate Kurt Evans, welcome. Republican candidate, Congresswoman Kristi Noem, welcome.
Thank you.
Democrat candidate, South Dakota State Senator Billy Sutton, welcome. We will begin with our opening statements. Names were drawn to determine the order. Going first is Congresswoman Kristi Noem. You may begin. All right, we're moving on. Mr. Bjorkman, you'll start with this next one. We're going to talk about workforce. South Dakota, we're dealing with a workforce shortage in pockets of our state. In addition to that, we have a shortage of qualified workers. What efforts will you lead to increase our workforce and provide more opportunities for South Dakota families?
Great question, Stephanie.
Hello and welcome to South Dakota Focus. I'm Stephanie Rissler. Tonight we are talking about our state's #2 industry, tourism. Last year, South Dakota welcomed 14.1 million visitors who contributed close to $4 billion, an increase of 2.5% from the previous year. Those in the industry have been busy gearing up for this year's travel season, and they are here to lay out the facts and help all of us plan our next in-state getaway. Throughout the hour, if you have a question, you can send it directly to me by email or text. Our email address is sdfocus@sdpb.org, and our phone number to send a text is 956-7372. That's 956-SDPB. Now let's meet our guests. First, Jim Hagan, Secretary for the South Dakota Department of Tourism. Welcome back, Secretary.
Good to be here. Thanks, Stephanie.
Also here we have Casey Wisemental, Executive Director of the Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, as well as the Board President for Glacial Lakes and Prairie Tourism. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Gary Keller, the Executive Director with Southeast South Dakota Tourism Association. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you for having us.
And Ron Madison with South Dakota Missouri River Tourism Association. Thank you for coming, Ron.
Thanks for inviting me.
A long way. We have got a lot to talk about, some great video pieces we're going to show, so we're going to get right to it. Secretary, I want to start with you, because as I was looking through some of the information, I came across something that said the Department of Tourism will build off the 2018 Great Faces, Great Places campaign, but to also change any negative or uninformed perception that may still exist out there. What does this mean?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're leading with that. Well,
hi everyone, Stephanie Rissler with South Dakota Public Broadcasting, continuing to work on our project, Vanished South Dakota, Towns of Yesterday. Today we're in Ardmore. It sits just north of Nebraska. It's in Fall River County. It is an unincorporated community founded in 1889, and the local history goes it was named after a teacher, Dora Moore. President Calvin Coolidge would also stop here in 1927. And an interesting fact, Ardmore survived the Great Depression with not one single family needing to go on welfare. Well, today the community looks very different. Ardmore is a shell of its former self. Most of the businesses have closed up. Behind me is the hardware store that once was here. And as you walk around, there are many more businesses and homes that have all boarded up. Right here, this is where the bank in Ardmore once sat. There is a no trespassing sign, but you can look through the windows and actually see the safety deposit boxes that once held important documents of the families that lived here. Continue to join us as we travel across the state, covering vanished South Dakota towns of yesterday. And that really just touches the surface, Governor. Thank you for being with us tonight on South Dakota Focus.
Well, glad to be with you.
I remember, it was about 8 years ago we had you on as we began this journey. Tonight, as we move through the hour, we're going to ask South Dakotans to text us and email us, so we might have some questions coming in from folks across the state. As you look back, how fulfilling has the job of governor been for you professionally?
Oh, it's been really rewarding.
Refusing work permits for minors, South Dakota's Tobacco Settlement Fund, and gaming in Deadwood were just a few of the many issues state lawmakers tackled in Pierre this past week, the second week of the 94th legislative session. Hello and welcome to State House, our weekly wrap-up program. I'm Stephanie Rissler. We'll begin with an interview with our state's Senate Minority Leader, Troy Heinert. Senator Heinert served as the assistant leader under Billy Sutton last year. So going into the role, he knew somewhat what to expect. So while the leadership position isn't brand new to the senator, being our state's first Native American in this leadership role is. Here's part of our interview. Well, Senator, thanks for being with me today.
Well, thanks for having me.
You take over this role, but it's a new role in a sense. You are the leader of the minority party, but you have sat in as the assistant minority leader, so you kind of knew what to expect. But tell me, how has it been so far?
I had an idea. I didn't realize all of the requests that, for time that you get as the leader.
Hi everyone, Stephanie Rissler with South Dakota Public Broadcasting, continuing to work on our project, Vanished South Dakota Towns of Yesterday. Today I'm in Dewey. Dewey sits in the southwest corner of Custer County. It's actually just 1 mile from the Wyoming border. It was named S&G, and that came from the ranchers that settled here, which stood for Sturgis and Goodell. In 1890 it would be changed to Dewey, but they're not quite sure if that was done by the railroad company or the post office. And speaking of post office, right behind me is the old post office, which also had the general store inside. There are some other old buildings around the town that were once thriving at one time, including some old homes. And of course, there are a handful of people that still live here and call Dewey home. Back in the day, Dewey was known as a cattle town. In fact, ranchers from all over the area would come here with their livestock to be shipped in the rail cars. And just west of me, there's a notch in the hill. And the livestock ranchers knew that they had to go through that notch, and on the other side they would see Dewey, and from there their cattle would be loaded up and shipped away. They could then come in and purchase new supplies here in Dewey and visit with old friends. It's certainly not a vanished town, but it is a shell of its former self. Continue to join us as we work on Vanished South Dakota Towns of Yesterday. Representative Mickelson, thanks for coming up and talking to me.
It's nice to see you, Stephanie.
You as well. Thank you very much. Safe travels home.
Thank you.
All right. And that does conclude SDPB's coverage of the budget address for fiscal year 2018. If you missed anything of what you've seen today, join us tonight at 10:30 p.m. Central on SDPB. We'll re-air our budget address, and as always, all of our stuff is archived at sdpb.org/statehouse. And this year we're going to encourage you to check out SDNet for all your online streaming resources, whether it's high school activities or the South Dakota Legislature. On behalf of everyone with SDPB, I'm Stephanie Rissler and Keely Boltina. We thank you for joining us.
So this was all developed and there would have been businesses every 25 feet because these lots are all platted out for 25 feet.
Wow.
But this was all developed, and there was businesses all along here. And then in the 30s and 40s, there was a big fire, and it wiped out almost all of these businesses.
Ryan Maher served in the South Dakota legislature and is a business owner from the north central part of our state. He knows all too well the importance of knowing our state's history as he works hard to keep today's small towns alive. I'd like to welcome to South Dakota Focus United States Senator Mike Rounds. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity tonight.
It's good to have you back here in South Dakota and with us.
It feels good. Rained all the way from Pierre all the way down almost to Sioux Falls today, and tell you what, we could use it. It was nice to see a spring day in South Dakota.
Very good. Well, before we dive into the questions here, I first want to share with our viewers a brief look at the senator's biography, going back to his time as a state legislator, governor, and then today. Take a look. Mr. Johnson, this is the second time we've done this program. We did it about a year ago, and it did generate a lot of buzz during the hour and after the hour. But I want to go back and just kind of bring viewers up to speed. When we talk about human trafficking, how do we define it? This will conclude our coverage for this afternoon and the oath of office ceremonies, but the festivities for the inaugural celebration are not over. In fact, they're just beginning. The receiving line will take place. Everyone will come back here later this evening for the Grand March at the Capitol Ball, where the dignitaries will take their walk down the grand staircase. And Larry, you and I will be here as it all unfolds.
It's fun to watch. We'll have a chance to see everyone in formal wear and watch the beginning of the celebrations this evening here at the Capitol, and then later on at the Ramkota. Well, but before we leave here today, you had a chance to sit down with then Governor-elect Kristi Noem just the other day, have a little chat about her journey through politics, her hopes for the state, and her family.
We did. She took the time to give me a one-on-one interview. She talked about coming full circle, starting off as a member of the South Dakota State House of Representatives, then going to be our U.S. House congressional woman, and now the 33rd governor of South Dakota. She talked about what it means to be our state's first female governor, and she also talked about hitting the ground running when the legislature starts with some bills of her own. Larry, as you and I say goodbye, I'd like to share that interview with all of you watching today, and we hope to see you back here tonight. Good night. First, thank you for doing this. I know how busy you are. When I was putting these questions together, I really went back to when you first started, or at least when a lot of folks would remember you starting in the House of Representatives. It's almost as if you've come full circle, and I want you to talk about how that feels, knowing when you first came here representing District 6 and now becoming the state's governor. What's that feel like?
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day with the family, because when I first was elected to the legislature, the kids were so little.
As the trend is in America, smaller towns are dying. As the population gets older, they need medical services and so forth. And thus the population leaves, the towns decline, tax base is gone, buildings deteriorate.
You can look at every situation in South Dakota and you can see how those two steel rails have gone through it and how they've influenced it. It's hard to separate the two. South Dakota's history from railroading, there's just no way to divide them up.
The history in this area is very, very rich. There's a lot of stuff that goes unsaid. We're kind of the forgotten part of the state. There's not necessarily anything to see. It's all written and oral history that we have out here. You can go out and you can stand in the middle of the prairie when the wind's blowing and watch the grass blow in the wind, but as far as sights to see and monuments to see, there really aren't anything. It's just the oral history and the written history that we have to offer.